Hi, I'm Julie from Green Acres Nursery and Supply, and today we're going to be talking all about hydrangeas and all the tips and tricks to make them look good in your garden. So hydrangeas typically want to be in morning sun and afternoon shade, but they are super great for color, and there is a variety called a limelight that is growing more like a cone. It's a Paniculata that can handle a little more sun if you just don't have that much shade in your yard. But otherwise, just 4 hours of morning sun is perfect for them. Now with that said, there are a few different varieties that exist. So you can get your traditional mophead hydrangeas. Those are going to be the ones that grow into a big ball and give you lots of color in your yard, and those are the ones that you see more traditionally. Then there are lace cap hydrangeas. Lace cap hydrangeas, the flowers grow in a ring, and then there's little buds in the center, and when they open up, they're going to have like a little lacy stamen that spreads across the top, and they kind of look like they're wearing a little lace cap on top of their head, which is really adorable. Then there's also Piniculata varieties, and Paniculata varieties, they kind of grow like a big cone, and it's got a bunch of tight little tiny flowers that is clustered together, and these are usually a little bit more hardier than your other hydrangeas. And then there's oak leaf hydrangeas, which are one of my favorites. They're native to the Georgia and Mississippi area, but what's cool about them is that they've got these super long flowers that are usually white, and then when the flower dies, they fade to a pink, which gives you another show out of them. And the other cool fact about those is that they have these giant lobed leaves, which is why they call them an oak leaf hydrangea. But in the fall, they'll turn a deep wine red and give you another fall show. I'm all about having color all year round in my garden, so having one plant that does 2 seasons of color is great, which is where the oak leaf comes in really well for you in your garden. So now that we know the different varieties of hydrangeas, now it's time to know how to take care of them once you plant them in your yard in a good morning sun spot. So one thing that all these guys have in common is that they all need the same type of fertilizer. They need acidic fertilizer, like the stuff, the EV Stone Azalea fertilizer. We have other varieties too that you can pick from, but sticking with an azalea fertilizer is best. And for customers who have a hard time remembering when to fertilize, what I like to tell them is to remember to feed your plants M&Ms. So that means March through May. So M&M, March, April, May. But that's kind of a basic rule that you can use for all your plants for the most part, but hydrangeas especially will really appreciate that. Another thing you can do in March through May is change the color of your hydrangeas. A lot of people don't realize that you can turn your pink hydrangeas blue or your blue hydrangeas pink. Unfortunately, the white ones stay white. You can't change them with the pH. But if you want to make your pink hydrangeas blue, you would use a tablespoon of aluminum sulfate in a gallon of water, and you're going to do it once a month, March, April, May, M&Ms. And you want to avoid from splashing it on the leaves because it can damage the leaves, but this will change the pH in the soil and it will make it to where they'll start turning blue. Now let's say you want the opposite and you want to change your blue hydrangeas more pink, then you would stick with agricultural lime, and this is going to change your pH by putting a tablespoon in a gallon of water, March, April, May, and doing a soil drench with it, and it'll make it to where they'll be more pink. So now that we know how to fertilize it, let's talk about watering. It is no coincidence that the word hydrangea and hydrate sound similar. They are super thirsty plants. So you need to make sure they stay semi-moist, especially in the summer when they're blooming. If they don't get enough water, you'll see their little heads flag and wilt really quick. So go out there and make sure they get their water. But they just want to stay semi-moist for the most part. And this leads me to the hardest part for a lot of customers, which is the pruning. So different hydrangeas need to be pruned in different ways. So your real traditional hydrangeas, like your mop heads and your lace caps that aren't repeat bloomers, they bloom on last year's new growth. So if you prune them too late in the year and you cut off all the new growth that you got from last year, they're not going to bloom this year and it's just going to be a green shrub. I can't tell you how many customers I have come in and say that their hydrangeas don't bloom and it's just because they're pruning. So the trick with those regular mop heads and lace caps and oak leaf hydrangeas is to prune the dead flowers in like late summer, right when they're dying, so that way any new growth that comes off of that goes dormant in the winter time will still be there and ready for next year to start blooming for you. Now there are varieties that are really fun called like Let's Dance Blue Jangles and Fort Bragg and the Endless Summer varieties that will bloom on old wood and new wood. So it doesn't matter how you prune those guys. So if you're worried about it and you don't think you'll be able to prune them right, if you get those, you can't really mess up, and we carry a lot of those in the nursery as well. So that's another option if you're concerned about the pruning. It just kind of throws it out the door as far as having to be a worry. Another variety are your Paniculata varieties that I talked about earlier. Those guys, they need to be pruned in the wintertime because their new growth is from, or their blooming wood is from this year. So if you prune it in the winter and you start seeing new growth coming off of it, don't touch that new growth because all their new wood is going to be blooming this year. But I hope that helps you with all of your hydrangea questions. If you have any questions, please come to any of our 7 locations. We have locations in Auburn, Rockland, Roseville, Folsom, Elk Grove, Sacramento, and Citrus Heights. We have a super knowledgeable staff, and please like and subscribe so we can make more videos like this one, and happy planting!